In the 3rd century BC, Rome was on the brink of collapse. Its legions, once feared, were defeated again and again. However, in the midst of despair, the Romans made decisions that would change the course of their history forever. How did such a devastated army reinvent itself and become the war machine that would dominate the known world? Join us as we discover how military reforms transformed Rome, creating one of the most imposing forces of antiquity. In the early 3rd century BC, Rome found itself in a desperate situation. Its legions were defeated in multiple battles, especially during the wars against the Samnites. These failures exposed the weaknesses of the old Roman military structure. In this crisis, Rome was forced to reinvent its army. But how would they turn the situation around and forge one of the most powerful military forces in history? The answer lay in a profound reform of their tactics and structures. It was at this moment of desperation that Rome implemented one of the most decisive military reforms in its history, the Manipular system. Instead of continuing to use the ancient Greek phalanx, the Romans adopted the triplex aces, a formation of 3 lines that offered greater flexibility and maneuverability on the battlefield. This new system allowed the legions to adapt quickly to the circumstances of combat, reinforcing specific sectors when necessary. The reform was based on the principle that the strength of an army is not only measured by its ability to attack, but also by its capacity to move and respond to changes during battle. One of the most innovative features of the Manipular system was the quincunx formation, also known as the chessboard formation. This arrangement allowed the legions not only to advance flexibly but also to retreat quickly when necessary, taking advantage of the gaps between units. The reserve units, waiting in the rear lines, were ready to intervene at any moment and reinforce the combat, ensuring that the army never ran out of options during critical moments of battle. The Roman army was not a homogeneous machine, but a diverse force that combined experience with youth. In the front line, the hastati, young soldiers with less experience, were the first to engage in combat. Behind them, the principes, more experienced soldiers, would take over if the hastati failed. And finally, in the last line, the triarii, battle-hardened veterans, were ready to face any enemy who survived the first 2 waves. This 3-line system not only allowed for great tactical flexibility but also ensured that the most experienced soldiers were always ready to intervene at the decisive moment. As Rome faced more sophisticated and powerful enemies, the tactics of its legions continued to evolve. The flexibility of the Manipular system allowed Rome to quickly adapt its strategies, incorporating new formations and weapons as threats emerged. Each battle, each victory or defeat, provided valuable lessons that the Romans were eager to apply, perfecting their methods and ensuring their army was always one step ahead of its rivals. The Roman army not only depended on its heavy infantry but also on light troops such as the Velites, who played a crucial role in the early phases of battle. Armed with light javelins, the Velites would move forward to harass the enemy, weakening their lines before the main infantry entered action. These soldiers, agile and fast, were tasked with confronting unconventional units like war elephants or chariots. After their initial skirmish, they would quickly retreat behind the lines, awaiting new orders. Cavalry, on the other hand, also played an important role, supporting the infantry and allowing the Roman legions to dominate both the battlefield and the enemy's flanks. However, not only tactics and formations were crucial to Roman success, but also leadership and troop morale. Figures like Fabius Maximus, known for his strategy of attrition during the early phases of the Second Punic War, were key in maintaining the cohesion of the army during moments of despair. The Romans understood that the morale of their soldiers could make the difference between victory and defeat. A competent leader not only guided his troops on the battlefield but also inspired them to maintain hope and fight to the last man, even when the odds were against them. Throughout the wars, the Romans realized that their cavalry needed significant improvements. Originally, Roman cavalry was not considered of high quality, especially when compared to the Numidian forces of Hannibal. But as circumstances required, the Romans began to reform and strengthen their cavalry, adopting tactics and equipment from enemies that they found to be more effective. As Rome expanded its territories, so did its network of allies. The Roman legions did not only depend on their own troops but also on allied forces, such as the socii, who provided infantry and cavalry, sometimes matching or even surpassing the Roman forces in numbers. These allies, though crucial, often faced tensions with Rome, as evidenced by the constant rebellions of the Samnites and other tribes. Despite the crucial importance of the socii to the Roman army, the relations between Rome and its allies were never easy. Although Roman allies received protection and certain benefits, such as defense against invaders, tensions were always latent. The Samnites, in particular, rebelled several times, showing the resistance of the peoples that Rome had subjugated. Even in times of despair, such as after the defeat at the Battle of Cannae, more than half of Rome's allied population did not betray the Republic. This loyalty, despite the difficulties, was key to Rome's survival during its darkest hours. The success of the Roman army did not only depend on its tactics and reforms, but also on the relentless discipline with which its soldiers were trained. From an early age, future legionaries underwent rigorous training that turned them into war machines. The formations were perfected down to the smallest detail, and every soldier had to master the most complex maneuvers. The training not only focused on combat but also on the construction of camps, equipment maintenance, and physical endurance. This iron discipline ensured that the Roman army was always ready to face any threat, anywhere. Being a Roman soldier not only meant fighting on the battlefield, but also making daily sacrifices in everyday life. Long marches, the construction of fortified camps, and the constant maintenance of equipment were just part of their routine. Far from their families, the legionaries lived in harsh conditions with few comforts. But camaraderie and a sense of duty kept the army united. The soldiers knew that their mission was bigger than themselves, and this loyalty to Rome and their comrades was what drove them to keep fighting, even in the most adverse circumstances. Rome's military legacy did not end with the fall of the empire. The reforms and tactics of the Roman legions laid the foundation for the armies of future civilizations. From the Middle Ages to the modern era, Roman formations and strategies influenced militaries around the world. The organization and use of cavalry, flanking tactics, and innovations in weaponry were adopted by many cultures, demonstrating the lasting effectiveness of Roman methods. In this way, Rome not only conquered lands but also left an indelible mark on the history of warfare. The military reforms of Rome not only changed the fate of the Republic, but also transformed the way future civilizations would approach war. From early defeats to the creation of a formidable army, Rome demonstrated that even in the darkest times, adaptability and innovation could ensure survival. What would we have done in their place? How would we have reacted to such despair? Rome left a legacy that endures to this day, teaching us that difficulties are not the end but an opportunity for reinvention.